you have to let it compost, so it takes 18 months for it to make sure it's composted, and then we do that.
Where do you work?
That can be spread on fields. There's really nothing left. It's basically wood chips.
I mean, but, I mean, here that would be a much more peaceful idea because we tend to have areas beside the pain and big.
Yeah.
So you would have, I think there was, what is it, the water impoundment area? Somebody had a camera out on a bayside over there and there was like 18 different bears that hit it, which would only be what, a mile or so north of where this is.
Yeah. No, that can be done very easily.
Yeah.
And incineration is out of the question.
You know, incineration is, you know, if you're living next to an incinerator, you're going to complain about the incinerator more than you'd ever complain about the tank. It's like being in a park. It's just not, and it's very, very costly. Yeah, no, the only thing that would be left is the main jawbone at times. That's the only solid bone. So the rest of them are gone pretty quickly. But the governmental unit that regulates compost is the Board of Animal Health. So, and actually, the guy that does that, his name is Deckinger, Carl Deckinger. And so I was talking to Carl about this. He'd be happy to come up and talk to you about this.
So the people that contract the manure for you would also get the bones from these piles?
Yeah, like I said, the only bone that's left, and then now they're going through a hay chopper. So you put the things in, it's like your powders in it.
Does that go in with the fertilizer then?
You can just spread it on just like you would spread compost, just on top.
Separately then?
Yeah.
Like down here?
Yeah. Like the stuff right outside the counter.
All your facilities, including the feral cleaning facilities and including the system?
Yes.
So the contract for the fertilizer is only for the previous landowner or landowner in contract initially with.
You know, the thing is to site them somewhere where you don't, you know, you worry about, you know, the roads and those things. So it's nice to set them on a place where you can use all the drag line on everything, or very close to a site. So you're not moving it up and down the road. Yeah, down there, they track it 15, 20 miles. That's something that's,
We're just wondering. And that's sold, correct? You sell that?
yeah, most of it's sold up. I'd say everything that we had is sold.
And up here it would be the same.
Pardon me?
Up here it would be the exact same.
I think over time it would be. There's something to guys understanding the value of it. You know, so in Osaka, we gave it away the first 4 years. And they see the value. And usually it's sold about
So up here,
60%.
up here you're looking at the same landowner, kind of for both sites, so that landowner would get all of it down there, so he's the only one benefiting from that?
Well, you know, let's say that landowner is the owner of the facility, then yes, he would probably pay.
One owner for the facility? How do you, your management group, correct?
Yeah.
So you have no financial input into these things, or you're just getting
not about just on transportation, all these things.
So you're not a direct owner then?
Just like Jeff Ward.
Jeff Ward may own a few minutes in there.
What if somebody else wanted to say put up a, you know, bring in and start raising some hogs like near these facilities, how do you handle that? Like if I want to convert my horse farm into a pig farm,
Right.
and that takes a while, would you be fine with that?
Well, we have to, right, that would be your, right?
Even if they have wells over, even if they have.
That would still be your,
Then see, I guess, most of them yeah, 2 pigs, we still can't get nothing under on that patch.
that's because I have too much money, so. You shouldn't have told your feedlot officer that. You should have told your feedlot officer that.
It's quite a big area.
What's the definition of a feedlot?
Well, you're required to be registered in the state of Minnesota since the law was 10 years ago created. If you have 10 animal units, so we'll say 10,000-pound cows near shoreland or in certain districts, or if you have 50 animal units and you're away from shoreland, anything more than that would be considered a feedlot if they're in a concentrated area that doesn't grow grass, we'll say, feeding them all. So it could be a barn or a fenced area that, so concentrated that they actually kill grass
For the winter?
for pasture, feeding, or it's not considered a feedlot, no.
It's not
I
going
mean,
to grass and
if
winter.
it's concentrated, no, in the winter, if you say, well, I'm only gonna have all these animals together in the winter, then it's probably gonna be considered a feedlot too, you know, you assume that it's gonna kill the vegetation, I guess. And of course, when you're next to shoreline, it's more restricted. It should be a stream law.
What's the, for the,
It's 1,000 feet from a lake, 300 feet from a stream.
That's one thing we could be more restricted on. Is what qualifies as having to be a feedlot. So in Bloor County, it's 10 animal units.
Now, how does that work when wells like, 300 feet from
Well, I don't know, in relation to a feedlot, a well could probably be 100 feet away, if that's what you're curious about. Like, it used to be 50,
I'm concerned about contamination.
the well to the stream,
the stream did as well.
like flood water or something being in your well casing, or,
No,
'Cause there's-
hog water or hog waste.
Yeah,
in
in the stream.
the aquifer.
Yeah, as far as the location of a well to a feedlot, that's the only description I can give, I guess is the restriction is 100 feet at least, I suppose. Because it could be established, you know, there's might be wells that are inside farms yet, even in Norman County, and because they were there before, they're still allowed to be there. But it's not good policy, and if a new well's built, the Department of Health would say, as well as a pollution control agency, that it can only be so close.
it's not a big, you can run that.
No, you need to be saying, if you're over 10,000 a day, you have to get a permit from the DNR. So your well has to be flow tested to make sure that it can recharge.
Cause where you wanna go, he's got that irrigation system up there, and they will not allow him to come up. And he'd use far less than like you
Oh,
would.
no, no, no.
He'll use more for his irrigation, when he's running it, anyway, during the times he uses.
So we use about 8,000 a day. An irrigator runs at 1,000 a minute.
I ain't no farmer, so.
So no, it's not even close. So the city of Erie, I think, uses about 44 million. So the city of Osakis uses 360 million. The city of Long Prairie uses about 240 million. So,
I came from this.
so I mean, you gotta put it in, you know, so if you take a 40-acre site, there's enough, 4.5 inches of water when it rains, on that 40 acres is the amount of water you would use in that facility the whole year. That kind of gives people an idea, it's not a lot of water, especially when you got irrigators running that 1,000 acres.
Paul, are you still looking for investors in these buildings, or is that taken care of now, or? Cause I know when I talked to Jeff Ward, he said that you guys are still looking for investors, or is that?
Well, you know, right now, before I look for too many investors, I have to get one that I can start going on. I gotta get one somewhere.
Well, like, what kind of money is it to invest? Like, what typically does?
So what would this facility cost?
Just like, how many investors do you get into each facility?
Oh, no, usually it's, you know, like in southern Minnesota, where all these guys kind of went together, and then they raised the pigs coming up. I would say most of them on a site this size, are probably 3 or 4.
Okay. So they're putting in like 3 million these, or?
No, you know, a lot of these would have been built 10 years ago, so the price was about half, so.
So for an investor in, like, say, these facilities, what kind of, like, how many investors would you need at what kind of, like?
There again, it just depends on how much they want to come in. So you're gonna have, you know, to finance it, you gotta have 40%. So you know, it's whatever you can get to the 40%. So if it's $4 million, let's just say you gotta have $1 million, or, you know, 40% any of it.
So you're looking for like 3 or 4 people?
Yeah, it could be. You know, as of right now, I'm not looking for any. So. The nursery thing is a little different.
Is that,
It's a nice job.
who is it that's, gonna be, who's looking at putting those in?
You know, right now, I don't know if I want to.
Oh, that's, but I mean, those are already, like, you don't need investors for that.
I had somebody that contacted me right after the first meeting and asked if there was something we could do on piece of acreage.
How much are you looking to spend on those?
They're about, they run about $150 a space. So 600,000 per site. Yeah, they're not very big. So,
Like, about how many feet is that?
how many feet,
Or like, how many?
What's the
what's
building?
square footage?
so the building is like 80 by 100, so they're almost square. And they hold 2,000.
And that's all cement too?
No, that would look more like your traditional
Full bar.
barn, not a full barn, but a barn. person, like I said, it's a 3/4 for a person, and then, you know, so that they have time, you have part-time, you know, on weekends.
You know, I mean, just the facility, like, you know, say, cause if that's kind of your plan, then come up here if they work.
Yeah.
Are they accepted everywhere in the United States?
That design,
That design?
well, I'm sure they would do that, if the new design. So,
I don't know.
yeah, I had one burned down, that's why we did that. And I never wanted to do that.
What kind of profit is coming off this? Like investors?
You know, if you were to just invest, it would probably be percentages. It's kind of like owning your, if you own a motel out here and you just decide to own a part of a motel.
What kind of
Once you get
percentage
through-
rate is it? Is it like 20%?
I'd probably, that's guessing. Probably over time, by the time you get it, you're paid off, you'd probably be in that 12 or 13.
Any other questions for Mark or? Any questions for?
Yes, excuse me, notes from previous meetings on unfinished business. Question from Mark, could you define the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency's description of a phased action?
You know, me on that one, Scott, I don't understand it, what that would be.
Phase and connect,
Beg pardon?
phase and connect,
Yes.
yeah, that's where they take, if you were to build, if you were to go through an EAW, and so you get a site heat through the EAW, then they go into a phase and connect. So then you're limited on how many animal units you can put in within like a 3-mile radius of that phase connect. Otherwise, they say then it should have been connected to the original EAW.
Who determines the geographic area that is affected by a phased action?
It's set up by the state statute.
According to the PCA documentation, the area is determined by the government, the unit of government with jurisdiction over the project.
In this case, it'd be the NPCA, right?
So a phased action, which is defined as a feedlot project built in more than one stage or phase or in more than one location, it may be considered a phased action, and all the phases or parts of the project will have to be considered together in determining whether the project is over the mandatory EAW threshold. So if the PCA is the responsible government unit and Mark is responsible for the PCA in Norman County, then would not he be the lead in determining the geographic area affected by a phased action?
Yeah, I wouldn't be very good at it. I think we'd have to have some assistance there. And I understand a little bit what you're talking about, but if I had anything to say, it would be with the recommendation with somebody that knows more about it. And you're talking about combining facilities to call it one large facility. I just don't, I don't know enough right offhand to give you an educated answer anyway.
Would certain things in determining whether or not two facilities are a phased action, would something like the recent report on the 10-mile transmission transmission vector, airborne of two facilities, would that sort of thing be taken into account? given that the two facilities originally presented are 7.6 miles, one downwind from the other? Would that have an effect on the determination of whether or not it's two facilities or one phased action?
I would say probably not. If you're asking me, I would have to refer that to somebody else. I don't have the ability to make those kind of judgments.
But someone in the Pollution Control Agency would.
Oh, I think you could get an answer, yeah. I do, definitely.
In a related note, the gentleman from, I believe it was Spring Creek Township, had brought this up. Are you familiar with the petitioning process that the PCA allows for individuals to require that an EAW be required for a feedlot, even though it does not meet the traditional criteria of, for example, being over 1,000 or 2,000 animal units?
Yeah, I've seen that done before. Where enough people in an area sign, and when they get to that 100-person signature, then it's done deal.
Would the facilities that have been proposed, either the Sundal or the Strand facility or the Lockhart facility, be subject to that petitioning possibility?
Yeah, there's even a lot of counties that if you get up to that area, they'll say, we would like an AEW. Actually, I only think it takes one petition to get, have an AEW. If it's over 1,000. So if it's under 1,000, I'm not sure how many that is. But that's always, I think that's pretty much the case on that, if you can have it. And so I want to make clear, I'm not afraid of the AEWs. But what doesn't happen is that if I want to build 5,000 sows here and put them in 2 sites, if I'm going to go through an AAW, I'm going to put 5,000 in one site. Because the cost of doing it is so high to get it done, that at that point you don't go for under 1,000. So, but, does that make sense? But does that make sense? So,
Well, then, who knows, gonna have some fun.
There you go.
Anybody else?
There was a couple of other questions that were going to be brought up by some of the members related to the facilities proposed in Sundal and Strand. Would there be a residence included in either of those operations?
usually not on site.
So during the evenings, there would be no one on site?
And during the evenings, there's usually no one on site.
And then there was one other question that had not been answered about how these facilities plan to handle, I believe it's production wastewater?
Production wastewater.
Facility wastewater, any water that is used on the facility to wash the materials, wash the trucks, wash the bins. What happens to any water that is used?
Outside of the facility.
Correct.
You don't wash the bins, so that doesn't happen. So let me go this way. Any of the runoff that's on the facility has to go into the whole site has to have a holding contain the water from the site. So if that water's contaminated, then you have to haul it like you're going home manure. So it has to be applied accordingly.
In other words, so the dune,
No, it's not a lagoon, so. But that has to be-
Underground tank,
No, it would,
does it-
all the surface water out of the facility now has to be held in so the rainwater, everything has to go into a holding pond, but just like you see along the interstates, things just to hold water, basically. The truck washers they're not washed on site there either, so, they're usually washed, somewhere, a truck washer somewhere else.
so all groundwater,
Ground,
all surface water on the facility is contained in an open basin.
Yeah.
And that's tested out.
Yes, because that's where we have to test it for other water.
do you, on that round tank underneath the building, do you have space to walk around that deal to inspect and make sure that there is no cracks?
On the outside.
Yeah, the tank that goes underneath, do you,
It's a
On
cement,
the
it's a
outs-
cement port basin.
yeah, but
No, no, you have tile underneath. And so you have to monitor the water that's coming out around the tile on the perimeter. So it's sampled twice a year for the dip.
I have a question, how are you going to control the surface water during the spring thaw? During the winter, we're frozen up here, we have, a lot of snow and ice. And if we have like 5 feet of snow, this water's not gonna go anywhere, you have like a huge berm around your, facility so that the spring and fall, won't run off into the creeks or the ditches.
Well, you gotta remember, there's really nothing outside.
the ground shifts it.
So there's really nothing outside the facility. There's no manure outside the facility at all. So, I guess it would be the same as any outside, you know what I mean, there's no manure outside the facility, on the outside of the building, that would be in the fall. As far as being concerned with the numbers.
I believe she's asking if the holding basin would be subject to being breached by a spring flood.
I'm sure it would be, because it has to go somewhere, right? So, I think they're engineered to 200-year flood, I think, to hold enough water for a 200-year 10-inch rain, is that what it is, I think?
Like we had in June.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't make it on.
Anything further? Out there?
Well, I live next door to a place that kept going up. Getting to the point where maybe one day I wanna leave. What's my place gonna do?
Yeah, this is, again, I get this all the time tonight. Land values in southern Minnesota, and houses in the, are probably more wanted and more sought after, and again, and just in the conversation, I had the invite out to have people come down, because all these questions, there's a lot of them could be answered by going through one of these facilities, because I think perception of what they are in reality are so far apart from what they really are. So I had, today in Osakis, we had an engineering group in today. You know, they're doing the hydrogen sulfide, they did the light test, and they did a noise, the noise test, and I'll have all that stuff for you. It's, they sell. You know, like I said, I lived 3 other feet from one my whole life. And my house is, I could sell my house at any time. So I don't, one down the road just or much more than I ever thought, so. But there's not the negative, there's not been a negative effect on my housing stuff.
According to my findings, they were, all the percentages were dropped on housing all the way around. I mean, that's my findings of University of Minnesota. I mean, that's why I don't understand where you're coming from, because I got, all my work was from the University of Minnesota. Their studies, the housing market has dropped around the capital. So,
Yeah, I
you
guess
take
it's-
one word over someone else's,
Well, and
there's a
so,
lot of
I mean,
information out there.
But CAFO is a big word.
Well, we gotta
You
use
know what I
that
mean?
because that's.
No, like when they talk CAFO, that really covers a large, I mean, there's a 9,000 couch area up in,
Oh,
you know, that's a CAFO along with this. Well, that's 10,000 animal units versus the 900. So that, you know what I mean? So you can't paint that. I mean, if I was living absolutely right next to 10,000 couch area, maybe my house would be worth less money. But that's not, well, that's how far away it is. So I don't think we placed one anywhere near anybody that was even close to a quarter mile.
Well, that's what the talk is, if you do it on the west end of the border, do it on the east end, might be a mile, and then there's neighbors. So,
Yeah, so I don't, if that's what the talk is, it's wrong, because I've driven the area, and it's not. I mean, the closest I think you would have the closest, if that site was the state.
He's talking about.
I'm talking Lockhart.
No, I know, I was on it, there's no way within over.
It's a different landowner.
I live on the same section as this
Is it on 5?
section, it's on section 34.
Is it the first section of the Lockard on 5? Okay, so that's, yeah.
I think that you're talking about a different landowner, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
how far do you try to stay away from housing?
oh, I'll look, it's far even better, right? So, but, no, I would say, because I just drove in there.
County Road 5 or Section 5?
How close to County 9? Or how close to Highway 9, Minnesota 9?
I'm not sure.
I gotta talk with him on, because I have already heard from one.
You said the name, right? That was wrong. So,
It was wrong.
yeah, that's wrong.
Really?
I drove it today, there's nobody within, at least over, probably 2.
What section is that?
I just, because if I tell you, then everybody knows.
Why do they want to keep it so hush hush? So if we could put a 3 mile
I think some of
ordinance.
them saw what happened to Keith.
Yeah, but it's our lives that we're dealing with, that's why we gotta know
I would-
the ins
I would
and outs
say-
of all of this.
Yeah, I would, you know, so if he decides to apply for a permit, you'll know, I guess.
I just don't know why it's kept so quiet, I mean, it's public for everybody, you know, it should be. Oh, once a permit,
Yeah.
okay, gotcha.
trying to come up with the tour date, you know, take it upon that offer along with that. Everybody's schedule is busy,
Right.
especially this time of year.
Well,
We're still working on that. I think we found some homes.
and there's a couple other calls, I think you guys should make, but I mentioned the name, the feedlot officer in Fairmont, County, Pam. And I don't think that doctor, she's not been contacted. So, Pam in Martin County would write this, bring it out in the office. And, the other county is Bloor County, of which I'm in. And, feedlot officer is George. And I would contact those people and talk to them, because they deal with it every day on a large, very large scale. So Pam is the one that, she's been there 18 years, they have 1,500 feedlots in the county. And she's pretty much seen anything that you guys want to ask her about, so it'd be a good resource.
Regarding Blue Earth,
Pardon me?
Why Norman County, just because it's an unpopulated county? Because it's weak financially?
Oh.
I mean, why, or just because you had an opinion up here? Is that what it- I mean, I don't know why Norman County is what I'm asking.
Because there, there's a lot of land, and, there's not a lot of pigs, so. So my question back is why not?
Are the regulations in Norman County, less strict than other counties?
No, they'd be much stricter in Brewer.
how so?
The setbacks,
Norman County only has 6 setback ordinances.
So in Bloor County, it's 1,500 feet, if you, and can expand depending on the airflow. But, then again, in Bloor County, it's much, the population is much, so, it'd be tough. But, and I just took a count today, so I live 12 miles north of Mankato, Minnesota. When I left today, I counted how many new barns were going up from Mankato, my place to Mankato. So within 6 miles of Mankato, there was 3 new sites being set. Mankato's population is 65,000.
Did that area used to be, as the Red River Valley and its environs are, considered one of the breadbaskets of the planet?
Oh, it still is Brewer County.
Regarding the growing of crops. I'm sorry, regarding the growing of crops.
Yeah. Yeah. It's still very, ag is, and crop production is the major industry in Brewer County, Martin County. And that's why the invitation is so important for me to get some people down, because you gotta see it. You gotta go through one, you gotta talk to the people that work in them every day.
Is it possible to get a closer one?
Well,
Instead of the
they
brand
wanna-
new facility, we'd like to see like the one that's, I think there's one that's a lot closer than.
Well, the Osakis one.
We'd like to see a new one and an old one, because the new one's gonna become old.
Right.
You know,
So the one-
We'd like to see if you have recommendations on all feedlots, not just Hogwarts. If it's all the workableness for all feedlots. So we'd like to see some, if you have any recommend, if you have any mark or not, recommendations on different large feedlots in the area.
all for locations. We could try, come up with some sites. We go
think the concern was they wanted to see one that we managed.
Maybe we'd have to ask them all because
So the one that we were looking at was one that I owned, so that we built in 1998. So I own it. So that's down the road, maybe. There's one called North Dakota Feeder Pig, which is a 5,000 sow one, that's on Highway 2, west of Grand Forks. I think it's about 50 miles west.
Is that the Camden one?
It's right on a curve out of, on 2, before you get to Detroit, or, Devil's Lake.
Oh,
Yeah,
Claremont.
just
Okay.
west, just
You
west
manage
of
that one?
No, I don't know, but it would be very similar.
How about the one in Camden?
I don't know.
I don't know about that one.
Do you know anything about the facility in Hitterdal?
Where?
Hitterdal,
No.
Clay County, Purina operation?
No. Does Purina own it? You know, does Purina own it, or?
I do not know the answer to that.
Yeah, and it's very, very seldom that, people let you in them. Just because they know that a lot of people going through. So, but that's why, to me, I can open mine because it's my risk. So, but, if you're to drive by the one on 2, you would have an idea of what that looks like. But that's a 5,000 cents.
So we, like, if we came to yours, we have to like shower in the morning, shower in the middle.
Yep.
Do you have yours for like makeup?
Not for me.
Is there any way to do that in one day?
Yeah, it'd be a long day for you. I mean, no, really there isn't, because it's 6.5 hours down. So I'll depend how long you want to do it, or how long you want to take. But you guys, and I think Tim said it, you're setting up regulations that encompass all feedlots.
Yes.
And it should be, to me, it would be important enough that if you have that responsibility for your townships and county, it's been put on yours to write it, you better write it right. Because the young guy down the road here that's now at 290 cows on his yard can't go to 310 if you write it wrong. And,
Is it possible, like, say, various people around here, I'm sure, like, down your direction, I've been down there like twice in the last month. Is it possible to just set up with you ahead of time, be like, hey, I'm gonna be down there?
Sure,
Can you just walk me through,
Yep.
is that possible?
yes. Yeah, you just give me a day's
Yeah,
notice
that's
so that I can get second. No, once you get in the car, it's not that far, but it is. The Osakis one is I don't own the pigs in there, so that I don't wanna put them at risk. I'll put myself at risk on my own to give you a walkthrough, but I don't. The outside of the Osakis one is, you can, do the outside.
Are you involved in that lawsuit?
So, which one? Which lawsuit, I guess?
The one that's been filed against Gorley Brothers?
So there was 2 filed against Gorley Brothers.
Do they involve you?
The second one we were named. So, it's in a nuisance. So those briefs will be filed at the end of next week. The long and short of it is that the only reason judges, as being a contractor, you really can't get sued. When you're a contractor I help them manage it, I don't own the property, nor do I own the So, we'll be dropped off that, but, the Northern Brothers were sued on a nuisance suit, for their manure management, the hauling practices. That was filed before we hauled anything, so that's no suspect. And, so there's no manure hauled in there, that was a nuisance suit. Again, noise and light were two of the other things. That's why I know that you can't see the state rights on noise and light. And I didn't saw that, so. The people named in, it's all being funded by the HSUS, which is the Humane Society of the U.S. And the HSUS is not a friend of agriculture, that's for sure. So, I'm very suspect of that. But I read the brief today, and I believe it'll all be dropped.
All right, anything else? Oh, okay, we got work. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming.
Yeah.
Very informative.
And I think most of you have my copy.
Oh, could you get me that analysis and then?
Yeah, I'll send it up to you, I'm pretty sure I still have your.
Okay.
So what I'll do is I'll just take some, I'll probably have them send up